What are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Either you are, or I'll be skipping rope with your entrails. Ta-ta.
This podcast is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Robots Radio. Games. Lore. Stories. Community. Just press play. Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the amazing universe of the Elder Scrolls. Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with my good buddy, Lotus. And Lotus, those sounds in the intro are from the last year of ESO content with the waves and the whole, I don't know, piratey sounding.
High seas, piratey stuff.
Game. Yep. Yeah. I'm going to have to change it because I got to update the logo as well because we're going to be entering year 5 of this podcast next month. And we haven't seen the announcement for what next year is for ESO yet, so I haven't adjusted stuff. Last year I did it too soon. I had to readjust it because I thought it was going to be one thing and then it wasn't. But welcome.
Maybe this time we wait a little.
Maybe we wait a little longer this time. But welcome back, everybody. So glad you guys are here. This is the show where we cover everything about the Elder Scrolls games. And currently we've been going through Morrowind stuff. We talked about Amalexia of the Tribunal last week. And this week we're digging into our favorite mecha-wizard of all of the games.
Mecha-god-wizard, actually.
Mecha-god-wizard. That's true.
I didn't think of that until just now.
Yeah.
Could have made the title even longer.
Oh, yeah. The title of our Twitch stream as we do this live is called Elder Scrolls Most Mysterious Mecha-Wizard. But yeah, it could have been Mecha-god-wizard. But yeah, we're talking about Sotha Sil, who we talked about a little bit on the last episode. These episodes are going to overlap a little bit because just inherently the Tribunal,
they're intrinsically linked.
Right, they're intrinsically linked. They're all kind of in the same boat until all of a sudden they're not, which we're going to talk about when it gets to Sotha Sil's demise at the end of the episode. But just a reminder also that these are overviews of the characters. We're not going to go into every single little detail or we would be here for like 5 hours. So little details like what actually is the nature of the Clockwork City and how does it work, like any of that stuff we're gonna
what's his order of operations when designing a new sphere.
Right.
Like, no, we're gonna pass on stuff like that.
So we're gonna cover a lot of this stuff and kind of go into some of these things in a little bit more detail than others, but for the things that we could do whole episodes on, we're gonna leave that out. So Rob is just spoiling stuff in chat already, so here, let's get into it. Lotus, Sotha Sil starts out in kind of meager means. I mean, he's from a little island called Sotha.
A little more connected as well, because Sotha Sil, not really just like, well, how much of the stories you believe with the Tribunal is up for interpretation, but a little more bit of a humble beginning to Sotha Sil.
Right. Yeah. He's from Old Sotha. He's part of the House Sotha. Sotha is like the last name. Sil is like the first name.
Yeah. That's just Dunmerry way of doing stuff. Yep.
Right. So he has a sister, Sotha Nal, and everything's all nice and fine, and they're growing up, and then he gets these little, there's these little stories about things that he learned that turn him into kind of a philosopher later in life, where, like, for example, he's hanging out by a bunch of kwama eggs and throwing stones at the poor little creatures until one of them pipes up and says, and actually talks to him and says, oh, I lost the quote. Oh, where did I put the quote? I had it on here. Oh, please, please have mercy, little boy, for what is sport to you is suffering and death to us. And if you're not familiar, kwama don't talk. Like, that's not a regular occurrence.
Yeah, that's a little more of a fable type of thing usually than legitimately talking. You've got your fairy tales and stuff like that written in the series, like the Brave Little Scrib and stuff like that, where they talk, but that's not Normally, like, it's weird when some creatures decide to suddenly communicate like that. That's so you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt of like, is there some type of magical influence is this, or is this just kind of being dramatic?
Right. This feels a lot like the kinds of myths that we tell in our own world, where you have, Greek myths and characters and things talk that don't normally talk. And it's because they're conveying a message and teaching a lesson. It's not because they're actually talking about the actual history of something.
Yeah.
There's another similar one where he decided to count every star and give each of them a name, and it spent hours on end doing this until he fell asleep. And when he woke, he saw that the stars had vanished and began to weep because it was daytime, learning the lesson that time cages all tasks. So we're limited by time. We're limited by the things that we don't think hurt others, but they actually do. All of these life lessons he learned growing up. And then Mehrunes Dagon decides to just, destroy his village.
Yeah,
and
just
everybody
screw
knows.
you. I'm going to destroy this, and everyone you love, take that.
Yeah.
Because I'm Mehrunes Dagon.
Because that's what Mehrunes Dagon does. So Sotha Sil is the last of the Sotha clan. And later on in life, we come to find out that he ends up working alongside Vivek in order to be a guide, it's not really a mentor, an advisor for the Nerevar.
Yes. Which is interesting. Just before we go down that, rabbit hole, tangent, whatever, that story. One thing that I find interesting about this, because Sotha Sil is a pretty unique character. And one of the things that I find interesting, because oftentimes he's, even as we were joking earlier, the mecha-wizard, and it's like, okay, very, being in a mentor type of status seems very befitting of Sotha Sil. But when you hear about stuff from Vivek's perspective, it was Vivek a lot of times teaching Sotha Sil because he was, and it's just very interesting.
Of course it was.
Yeah, of course it was. It's very interesting. Exactly like what obviously we'll get more into that, but it's interesting to think, because I feel him being the mentor and trying to learn these things and then portray that knowledge onto others definitely fits. And it's just funny because depending upon who you hear the stories from, it's, I found, Sotha Sil and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, did that really happen? Because that doesn't seem as much like the way you ever see Sotha Sil, or honestly hear about Sotha in any other situation, except I forget which of the 36 lessons specifically makes reference to it. But
right.
Just something that I always find amusing when kind of discussing him from a teacher aspect.
Right. Yeah. Vivek and Sotha Sil supposedly known each other a very long time.
Yeah.
And they both end up as these advisors to the Nerevar. And both of them are contemplative.
Yes.
We can say that.
That's a good way of putting what
they are. Both thinkers. Vivek and Sotha Sil have thoughts for different reasons, I think. Sotha Sil is contemplating the nature of reality and how to further improve according to what he believes would improve reality, is the sense I get. He's wrestling with the inherent terrible nature of things and trying to figure out how to, even with his godly powers, actually make a dent and make things different and better in some way. And he struggles with it. That's the sense I get from his character. Vivek and Almalexia respond differently to godhood. Almalexia initially, like we discussed last week, decides to use her powers for things that she knows will create better situations for people's lives. She becomes Mother Morrowind, and she reaches out in kind of a motherly fashion and helps those around her in need. Vivek we'll talk about more next week, but he uses his powers in what I would consider more of a self-centered kind of way.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And we'll dig into that more in the future. But they both are contemplative about the nature of reality and what things actually mean, what godhood means, what mortality means, all of these kinds of things. They're natural philosophers in how they interact with the world.
Yep.
And so the events of Morrowind happen with the Nerevar and the discovery of the Heart of Lorcan and all of that stuff, which we've talked about before. We don't need to recap all of that.
Yep.
And Sotha Sil is involved with this as well and gains godly powers. Ta-da.
Yep.
And
which his thirst for knowledge seems like he would have most likely been one of the driving factors to use the tools on the heart to potentially find some type of divinity type of deal.
Yeah, I would imagine it comes from a place of
his curious nature.
Curiosity
makes me think
right.
that it would really kind of like, because there's always the speculation of like, well, what exactly happened? Who did what? Has, you know, all the, and I feel like just his curiosity would basically prevent him from being able to walk away from that situation. It's like, well, I have to know. Like, it's I can just, it's right there.
I'll never be in this situation again. We need to find out what happens.
Right, exactly.
Is this really the heart of a god? If it is, what will happen if we engage with it? Yeah, I would imagine that, like, I mean, he seems like a natural scientist. He needed to try things out and see what would happen. And then he takes that godhood and he becomes he starts to tinker with reality, I think is the best way to put it, and
becomes a little mini god himself.
Right. And the Clockwork
Beyond just
City
the powers, like literally creating a world that he is essentially the god of.
Right. So we could talk about the Clockwork City. The Clockwork City is it's a separate realm of existence that exists both in no place in time and space, but also in a confined little globe that he keeps underneath the city of Mournhold. And
and when we say like a little globe, we mean like literally like almost like an oversized snow globe.
Right. And in order to get into it, you have to be shrunken down using magical means in order to enter the Clockwork City. And everything in the Clockwork City operates according to the way Sotha Sil designed it, unless all of a sudden things don't operate that way, and then that means something else is going on that seems to be symbolic. And my sense of this is that this is representative of Sotha Sil's struggle with the nature of reality and his want to create something that was more rational, more predictable, and devoid of a certain sense of natural evil, the kinds of terrible things that happen to people, like, you know, your village getting squashed by Mehrunes Dagon, or just a volcano opening up for no reason because plate tectonics or whatever, right? This is his way of saying, okay, well, what if I create a world where that stuff doesn't happen and everything's mechanized and everything happens in a certain order the same way all the time? Would that be a better reality? And so he decides to test that out. That's the sense I have of this, although that isn't actually written in those words anywhere.
I've always gotten a very similar feel from the way everything is portrayed in the games. And that's just it. Much like the series leaves stuff ambiguous a lot of times. A lot of the thought around Sotha Sil and the reason he does stuff is very nebulous. Like there aren't a lot of, it's just kind of,
he's mysterious. And if you ever ask him anything in any of the games, he always gives you some like bonkers, like way too wordy response that doesn't answer your question and leaves you with more.
Yes, exactly. Everything is very, very, very like metaphorical a lot of the times. One of the things specifically related to the Clockwork City DLC from the Elder Scrolls Online, at the end of the DLC, you can meet him out at a garden that he's created. And you can basically just have a very long talk with Sotha Sil out in this garden. And it's just like contemplates like the idea of the meaning of life and all this stuff. And it's just very interesting because he waxes poetic for a really long time. And it almost seems like he gives this eerie feeling. Again, this isn't something overtly said. It's just kind of always a thing. And I felt this Elder Scrolls Online did a good job of musically and artistically designing the zone to look like this. But in his constant search for this and kind of just being in his own head so much, there's a very lonely feel to him, just like being on this path of discovery by himself all the time. And he's essentially alienated himself from the people that he originally came from because he wasn't always divine, so to speak.
Right.
So he's like literally not even part of the people he existed with before. And now it's just this world he's created is so sterile, and he has to control all this stuff. And he has all these people who quote unquote love him and stuff like that. And that's fine. But he's basically very secular compared to everything else. It's his own little world, essentially.
Right.
And it's got a very, like when he speaks, it's got like a lonely tone to it some of the times when he references stuff. Yeah. And the zone itself is like got a weird sadness to it, which I've always wondered if I assume that's intentional, because it seems to pervade throughout a lot of things related to Sotha Sil.
Yeah. This is a theme that comes up in movies and books a lot. This idea that the pursuit of knowledge is both constructive and destructive. It's constructive in that it equips you with more understanding of the world, and you're better able to handle the things that you come across. You can educate others, things like that. But when somebody pursues knowledge to the point beyond everyone around them, and also isolates them.
Sure.
And that's the feeling I get from this.
It is. I exactly. And the other thing is, if you want to just go super concretely too, he's the last of his clan. They all died.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He's isolated in so many ways.
Yeah, it is. It's just so that like feeling of loneliness and isolation, I just have always found oddly unsettling when dealing with Sotha Sil. It's just very strange and very unique to that character.
Right. He's also the only of the Tribunal who takes on the Dunmerry coloring.
Yes,
of the skin
entirely
and eyes.
Dunmerry, as opposed to, you get the 3 different variants of all Chimeri, all Dunmerry, and 50-50.
Yeah. Almalexa was all Chimer still, and Vivek is half and half, like directly down the middle.
Yes, objectively being exactly what the two are.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know for sure the reason for that. I would imagine it has something to do with a certain sense of taking responsibility for the actions and that kind of thing, and being willing to take on the curse.
Sotha Sil always seemed a little more prone to, if he screws up, it's not like, oh, well, here's a poem about why I was actually the best.
Thanks, Vivek. Right.
Or another situation of, well, this is for the betterment of you and you just don't understand it. He seems like a lot of times, like, which it tends to go hand in hand with, scientific discovery. When you screw up, you learn from what you screwed up from. Right. And then try to not replicate the problem. He's not avoiding it. He seems a little more prone to when something doesn't go properly. Like, and again, he's a little bit more self-aware, I feel, than the other ones in the Tribunal. Yes. Especially, we'll get into his ultimate self-awareness toward the end when it relates to his lifespan.
I agree. I think
a lot ahead otherwise.
I think very much so. Just much like you're saying, much like a scientist. He's willing to, like, this was everything's an experiment, and if it goes the way you expected with your hypothesis, that's fine. But if it doesn't, you learn even more from that. So
correct.
Accept it
like,
and move on.
Well, what did I learn from this not being, like, why wasn't it what I thought?
Right.
Like,
or why did something terrible happen from this action? Okay, I need to own that and move on. Right. So yeah, I very much get the sense of that too. And we can go more into the Clockwork City in a separate episode. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Cold Harbor Compact, which is very interesting. And gives him some closure with the whole Mehrunes Dagon thing. Basically, in his seeking to make the world a better place, he decides to confront, towards the end of the First Era, the 8 of the more prominent Daedric princes, including Azura, Boethia, Hermaeus Mora, Hircine, Malakath, Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheogorath, all of whom sound extremely dangerous if you get on the wrong side of any of them. And basically, we don't know the details, but he got them all together in a plane of oblivion somewhere and basically said, here's the deal. You're no longer going to be able to invade Tamriel directly. You can commune with individuals, you can communicate, you can do those kinds of things, but you cannot set foot personally in Tamriel. And whether this was a negotiation and he gave them something in order to purchase this from them, or it was some sort of threat and he had the power or the backup of other powers at the time.
what's most interesting about this. They've never gone into the fine details of the situation. And as a side effect of that, that is weird. Like what?
Yeah. What was he holding over their heads? Like what?
Right. Like what do you either have to negotiate with or as a form of leverage against not just one Daedric Prince, all of these Daedric Princes?
8 of them. Of the most powerful ones.
Right. Like what could you possibly have that would make all of them not only agree with you, but they all are kind of on terms with like, yeah, no, we can't do this. Like, okay, this seems like this is a deal we're going to abide by.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Did he outsmart them? Maybe he realized that somehow their incompatibilities with each other would pit them against each other. And so he found a way to like, I don't know, to Sheogoreth them or something.
Right. Like, yeah.
I mean, he's a smart guy. Like maybe he calculated it all out and was like, if I do this, all these things cancel each other out and they'll never be able to unify against me. But either way, I mean, the ball's on that guy. Holy moly.
Say, big play, big time
big play. But of course, one of these decides not to go with it and invades, and that is Mehrunes Dagon, who decides to break the Cold Harbor Compact and basically invades another location.
Yeah.
And of course starts destroying everything because that's what Mehrunes Dagon does. And Almalexia and Sotha Sil stand up against him and take him on and kick his butt, which is pretty cool. Almalexia plunges Hope's fire into Dagon's flesh and carves him from within. Freaking awesome. And Sotha Sil enacts vengeance for Ald Sotha and used god bronze whips. And this is all very Kirkbridean language, by the way. Oh, yeah. To lash the prince into submission. And then eventually, while Mehrunes was down, like I imagine Mehrunes like taking a knee here. He goes up and whispers his Nimic, like his true name, which somehow Sotha Sil has discovered, into his ear, which everybody, like, this is one of those classic fantasy tropes of like, if you understand something's true name, you can gain power over them. Yeah,
and it's something ironically used against Mehrunes Dagon specifically in multiple games. The premise of the Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire. That was to my dismay because I had to write down the Proto-Nimic and Neo-Nimic, which his original name and then his new formed name in the game. And it was something like 47 characters long with like 3 vowels.
I remember you trying I read it out on that one episode. Remember that?
Yeah. So it's like, that is a thing where regularly that keeps Mehrunes Dagon in check. It's not even like a one-time thing. That is consistently like a controlling mechanism for him, it seems like. Yeah, which leads me to believe that he is like foundational among the powers, like one of the oldest of the powers, or which would make sense when we were talking about the Daedric Princes. He definitely dated back pretty much toward one of the original ones. Right. So anyway, so he uses this to basically stop Mehrunes and kind of get what's coming to him for what he did before. But it's also explained that when he whispered the Nimic in his ear, the prince, quote, exploded throughout all time. Yeah. Which again, Kirkbridean, what the heck does that even mean? It is, and also it's the same thing that happens at the end of Elder Scrolls Battlespire. I'd say spoilers for Battlespire, but me and the other 11 people who ever played this game, I'm sure they already know the ending or just shattered the game trying to play it because it's very frustrating. But yes, the very 90s-esque FMVs in some of the older games. The one of Mehrunes Dagon from that game where he very much looks like Goro. Right. Yes. When you say his name, you literally poke him once and he spirals off into the distance and explodes into light. And it's just like, wow, this is very dramatic. Like, think Michael Bay with an unlimited budget, and that's pretty much what you have for apparently if you whisper his name. Right. He's like, no. Blasting off again. Yeah. Like Team Rocket or something. So that's what happens with the Cold Harbor Compact. And of course, that's another episode full of stuff we can get into with that. And
just kind of sum up the rest of it, and we're not going to go too detailed into this stuff. The second era, there are events that happen with the Clockwork City, with ESO, and some other stuff that goes on there.
Yeah, I kind of reference some of those, but I mean, it's definitely a DLC worth playing through. It's also one of the shorter ones.
Yeah. But it's really cool because you get a lot of time where you get to like hang out with Sotha Sil and ask questions, and he actually talks to you.
And the end part I thought was specifically very, very well done when you complete the storyline and get to kind of like talk to him in that weird garden thing. He has a lot to say. Like, they fleshed out the character quite a bit in that one, listening to him talk and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then we have the third era, which are the events of the game Morrowind. And we talked a little bit about it last week, but poor Sotha Sil gets framed here. Almalexia sends a bunch of his machinations against people and has them murdering everybody. And everyone's like, oh, he's gone crazy. But he wasn't gone crazy, and he was murdered by Almalexia at the end. Right. And
it's very much because ESO kind of hints at it in a way. You actually get the scene. You see Sotha Sil, like in Morrowind, you get this scene of him strung, or he's like attached to his robotic creation. Right. It's kind of like a weird. He looks almost crucified into it type of thing, and he's just died and decomposed and blah blah blah. And you actually get a very similar scene in that same room in the Clockwork City, like a version of that room. So you get a very similar image in ESO, which is kind of interesting that there's like a callback to that scene.
Or foreshadowing to it.
And that's the big thing, is I always got the impression that Sotha Sil seemed to know that his time had basically come. And it was like, yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
Well, that's one of his things is about how the nature of reality is unchanging. And ultimately, like, he goes on these like philosophical tirades, but one of them is that like everything's set. Like nothing he does or can do or will do wasn't somehow already preordained. The nature of reality is unchanging. There is not actually free will.
Leaning very, very heavily into the idea of like the Elder Scrolls themselves, like having this like layout of how the universe works. And it's just like, we're just part of this.
Right. Unless you're a prisoner, and then it gets into that whole thing.
Right. And then can you break it and morph it and stuff like that?
I guess if you realize that that's not you're not a prisoner, then you're just like any of his machinations, going about the things that you're going to do no matter what, and your end time is going to be your end time no matter what, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, he seemed very accepting of his fate, and kind of seemed like he was aware what was coming, type of deal.
Right.
Which is, that's definitely going to be kind of weird to come to terms with, I would imagine. Just like, okay, well.
Yeah.
Here's my expiration date, give or take a couple minutes, type of deal, probably.
Yeah. Now, one other thing before we go to the mid-break, because we got to do the mid-break, and then we'll talk about the artifacts, because Lotus loves the artifacts. The other thing that is very interesting about him is that over time, he slowly like replaces parts of his body with...
Yes.
I mean, he's basically the closest thing we get to a cyborg.
Yes, very mechanical. He looks like he's built of a lot of the parts that he uses to create all of his creations.
Like his whole left side of him, his left arm and all of that. And initially when you look at it, you think, oh, he's wearing like metal gauntlets on one side of his body, or a part of his face has a mask on it. That has actually, the biological parts have actually been replaced.
Yes. And it seems like that also ties in because a lot of his apostles, which are his followers, and people who live in the Clockwork City have very similar situations when they've recovered from injuries. So I almost wonder if this is a degree of him using himself as a test bed in order to, like, okay, well,
to learn how to build the prosthetics.
So let's ditch my arm and see what I can do. Oh, it works on me. Well, now it's way easier to do it to somebody else now that I've perfected it, type of deal. So I always got this weird feeling. It's like, it seemed like he was replacing parts of himself almost in like more tests to like, okay, well, now I can prolong the life of people who are maimed or whatever, and all his citizens or followers or any of that stuff.
Right. Well, it makes sense because he is, Rob reminds us Pellinol is the cyborg. Yes, that's true. Sotha is of the ones that we get to meet, he's the most cyborg-like. But that makes sense, being that like he has godlike powers. So if he were to chop off his arm and not figure out how to build an extra arm, then he's the one who's most likely to be able to grow that back compared to the individuals that he might be testing on. So why not test on yourself? And it also goes back to scientists. There are scientists who, because they couldn't get approval to do tests on others, actually did tests on themselves, and because they were believed so much in the thing that they were trying to discover. So that's also
convince anybody to go along with it if you're the one that's already going along with it.
Right. Yeah. Down to the point of like giving yourself diseases and things like that in order to test cures, which sounds nuts, but that's amazing. It's amazing stuff. So tell you what, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to go thank our new patrons, and then we'll be back talking about the artifacts. So don't go anywhere.
This is Hamis Morak, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show, and we get to thank 3 new patrons this week: Wade C. and Elise M. And there's one more. I just skipped over it. Jeffrey C. Welcome to the Patreon. Oh, there's a 4. There's 4th. Kelsey L. I'm so bad at this. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm so not good at it. Welcome to the Patreon. I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you are enjoying the bonus episodes, like 90-something of those really early episodes that you get access to on the Patreon. Ad-free episodes, T-shirts. I know some of our hoodies have gone out. I've seen them out in the wild in some of the pictures people have sent me. Very cool stuff. Lots of different stuff you can get on the Patreon. Patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast if you want to check out that stuff. And no new reviews this week. So if you'd like to help us out, we'd love a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with some words, and we will read that out in the future. Otherwise, you can give us 5-star ratings on Spotify or Apple or whatever you're listening to us on. If it allows you to do that, that helps as well. And notice we're in 2023 now.
Yep. We'll be finding out what's on the horizon very, very soon, it seems like. Also, maybe us covering the Great Houses of Morrowind and then followed by the Tribunal ties into next year's thing of possibly being on the Telvanni Peninsula more than anybody realized.
Maybe. We're just going to have to see.
They look like geniuses or complete morons.
Yeah. You know, we've had, in the ESO stuff so far, we've had Sotha Sil in the Clock Crusader. We've had a lot of Vivek in the Morrowind stuff. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a ton of Almalexia.
No, it was really kind of just in base game with the Ebonheart Pact. Mm-hmm. That's about it. And we've yet to ever really get our mitts much on the Telvanni Peninsula and that whole area. Haven't really had that with much of a focus. So it would be interesting. And that is a portion of the map that is undiscovered. There have been a couple little hints at it in last year's High Isle, Year of the Bretons thing. So, it'll be interesting. I'm certainly... Also, if we're ever going to get spellcrafting, I was very wrong with the idea of spellcrafting originally. I still don't know how that would pull off exactly, but it has been on their idea block since like 2015 or something really, really long ago when I was like at a QuakeCon or something like that. But Again, I was expecting if we were ever going to see it, it would probably be with the whole Skyrim thing, because
College of Winterhold.
Right. And
but it wasn't. We didn't get it.
It wasn't. We didn't get that. But okay, the whole portion of the map based on the great house of the douchebag wizards, like
yes, the house of douchebag wizards.
Like, here's another entry point. Like, who better to give us spellcrafting in Elder Scrolls Online than the Telvanni?
The douchebag wizards. Sure.
Right, douchebag wizard.
Why not? All right. Well, maybe we'll get that. We'll see. We've been wrong before.
We sure have.
I've definitely been wrong before, but hey.
I got like maybe a 22% hit rate at this point after all these years.
That's still better than like any real world psychic. It's true. Look at if you're wondering about psychics in the real world, go look up websites that document all their predictions and which ones actually happen.
Oh, good.
It's actually worse than like the average of just a regular person.
Amazing.
Which is awesome. All right. Anyway, that's the middle of the show. We got more stuff to talk about. Here we go.
You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, dear child of cities. That is why the Night Mother loves you.
All right, so it's artifact time. Lotus,
is artifact
this is
time.
this is your bread and butter. Is there one you want to start with?
It is. So one thing I actually wanted to just mention right before we dive into the artifacts, and I had mentioned it, I don't remember which, again, you record enough that you kind of lose track of what was recorded when, but one of the things, because it's kind of like almost like a segue from his creations into these artifacts. So I figured I would just save it for the very end before we switch over. Mm-hmm. I had mentioned it before, but like his sister dying back when he was a kid. Right. One of the things that I always thought was interesting, just because I don't think it's ever been more than alluded to, but they all have, his fabricants have this weird voice.
Yeah.
And it's got a female tinge to it, but I mean, it's robotic. And it's thought to be, and they say really weird things sometimes, like not even related to, like some of them are related to like functions of like sweeping the floor or whatever. And some of them are like awakened screaming and stuff like that. It's like, okay, what was that little bit in between the sweeping the floor part? What was that about awakening screaming? Like, it kind of alludes to the fact that those actually might be the voice and memories of his dead sister put into that is dark.
Well, there's some lore around the fact that when he was building the Clockwork City, he was trying to find better ways of powering all the mechanized things. Right. So he was doing experiments with soul gems. He was able to engineer soul gems into black soul gems, and then basically came up with another method to power things using what was it called? I don't have it in front of me right now, but there's another device that works kind of like a battery, but it only works for certain purposes. And a lot of the stuff in the Clockwork City uses those. But the idea that a person's soul can be like in a black soul gem and then also be powering a mechanized creature that's also human-like is kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. And as it's one of those situations of like oftentimes where it's like, in stories where people are like, well, I wish I have wishes. I wish so-and-so would come back, but they're back the way they died. So it's not at all how you intend. Right. So it's like, is this a thing where it's like, oh, maybe there'd be a way to reanimate her, but what she remembers is her horrific death. So it's like,
it's constantly
that's
tormented.
Not a good way to come back at all. So
yeah. Like most of us have like, those nights where you're trying to fall asleep and you remember that really embarrassing thing you did in high school or whatever, right? Imagine having to be the psychological damage of dying and then coming back. That's going to be way worse than when you got pantsed in high school or something.
Exactly. Ones neither seem great, but one of them I think I'd probably take getting pantsed a couple times at that point, as opposed to, hey, remember that time you were burned alive in your own hut? It's like,
remember that one time I was hitting on that girl I really liked and I said the most stupid thing ever and lost all chances of ever. Like that's just barely scratches the surface when it comes to things.
So I just wanted to bring that up once more, just because that does tie very much into him, and I find it an exceptionally creepy part of like lore that kind of relates to more of his experiments type of thing. Jumping directly into his artifacts, I want to bring up the ones that are probably the most well known of Keening, Sunder, and Wraithguard, just because these are super crucial to pretty much the entirety of the series after the Elder Scrolls 3, in Elder Scrolls 3 and onward. But the snippet that we're going to use from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, the loss of the Heart of Lorkhan led to Sotha Sil to develop his own versions of these of the Heart of Lorkhan, and it's called the Mechanical Heart, which is another artifact we'll talk about in a minute.
Right.
But to siphon the Mechanical Heart's power, Sotha Sil created his own variants of Kagranax tools, which are the ones that I literally just mentioned from how they
Keening, Sunder, and Wraithguard.
Right. Yes, his is also it's got a Roman numeral too.
It's the sequel to the original.
The sequel, right? It's his versions of them. Which the Kagranax tools to control, shape, or even dismantle it if necessary. So basically, he gave himself like a out button with his, which is good to have safeguards when you're screwing with stuff like this.
Sure.
He foresaw his eventual death at the hands of Amalexia, and eventually hid his tools as a precaution across Nirn to prevent the heart's power from ever being stolen. Again, really good to have kind of like a safeguard for this situation. The location of the tools was lost after his demise, though some tales describe a forgotten hero reclaiming it circa 4th era 201. But basically, these are your. We don't have Kagranak's tools. We have our own at home. Like, you don't need new Kagranak's
Right.
tools. We have our own at home.
Right.
He basically made that happen because he didn't. You know what I mean? So
Mom, I want Transformers. We have those at home. No, those are GoBots. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And that's pretty much what we got with this set of tools. And I thought it was worth mentioning because the originals were so important to the series going forward. It's kind of funny that he has his own version of all of them.
it makes sense. Though. Like, he's the kind of guy. If anybody was going to create those, it would be him.
Well, and it gives him more time to tinker because, again, that whole pilgrimage thing, and then things go south with Dagathar being like, hell no, you get off my mountain, this is my heart now, like, type of deal. Having your own version of it to tinker with is pretty good because also if you screw it up, it's not the same thing. You didn't destroy the only one. You destroyed your replica.
Right. So then that's the mechanical heart.
Right, we should probably do that one next, which is the mechanical heart.
Well, I'll read out that one.
Yeah, go ahead, because this is the next essentially artifact. So
so also referred to as the new heart of Lorkhan is a mechanical replication of the heart of Lorkhan, which makes sense because he makes mechanical replications of the nature of reality. So why not, right?
Right.
It first began development shortly after the events that occurred in the Second Era 882, where Dagath awakened and then ambushed and nearly killed the Tribunal during their annual pilgrimage to Red Mountain. This is all the stuff that happened when they were heading down to the heart the first time.
Yeah, is basically kind of what kicks off how all this stuff gets started, where they start losing some of their godliness.
Right. So the event results in the Tribunal being cut off from their access to the heart of Lorkhan, and the Mechanical Heart project would be conceived by Sotha Sil as a backup to ameliorate the loss of the original heart of Lorkhan. So, we can't get to the original heart, but maybe I can make something similar enough to it that it'll help give us the powers or whatever we need.
Yeah, maybe this is enough that we can kind of stay divine.
Right. So, which sounds crazy, but I guess he had the power and wisdom of a god. So,
right, and they had been taking their pilgrimage for so long. I assume he's probably not just going up, giving it a whack and being like, well, I'll recharge, and then not thinking about it. That doesn't seem like that would fit. It would be very much like, oh, why am I getting this power? Why does this work like this type of thing? So then naturally wanting to see if you could duplicate that could be a total path that he would take.
Absolutely. And then they don't even have to worry about anybody keeping them from the heart because they've got one at home, like you mentioned.
Right.
So you want to move on to the mask next?
Yeah, the mask of Sotha Sil, which actually this one I was not as I guess not as accustomed to messing with.
It's not one that you use very often.
No. So the mask of Sotha Sil is a blessed mask, also known as the killing mask of the Tribunal god Sotha Sil. It embodies his idea of,
Avanesses.
Perfect. Thank you. That was beautifully done.
Anuvanassi.
Anuvanassi.
That's the way
whatever.
to say
The
it.
first way you said it was nice and smooth. I believe you.
Yeah, I put an extra S at the end, but yeah.
What are you going to do? Whose one of many goals was where their life would undergo a synthesis of organic and non-organic nature, akin to the Fabricants. So all of those little creatures that he keeps making.
Right.
Over time, Sotha Sil's body would become more and more synthetic, and his mask changed to undergo this transformation. His followers, the Clockwork Apostles, who I kind of mentioned earlier, just his like little minions. Think of them as they're represented very similar to like his own little church.
Yeah, they're like little monks and nuns and things.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Mimic the synthesis by modifying their bodies, as well as craft their own headwear in the Clockwork God's image. So basically, this is his little face device, which it's funny. I never really thought of it as a separate artifact, honestly.
Well, I guess there's one for Amalexia, the War Mask. And
there is. And that's the thing. There's two more. There's an Amalexia one and a Vivek one.
Right.
And actually, we had mentioned Amalexia's because it was ridiculous looking. It was very
None of
more
these
her war version of
right.
what she wanted people to look like when she kind of went on her tirade.
Yeah, none of these are flattering. And this one, the killing mask, you don't think of Sotha Sil as a killer. I mean, I suppose he took Mehrunes to task, but
sure.
Yeah.
But that's definitely not how you would necessarily I certainly wouldn't consider him a killer to start with.
Sure.
So, and that's just it. It kind of becomes part of him the way, their other mechanical parts are. It's kind of ironic. We talked about the pieces being put together and we didn't actually read the fine details on his Sotha Sil mask.
Yeah. One thing I didn't do at the beginning is mention the other names that he goes by. Some people call him
I suppose
Set.
that would be somewhat important.
Yeah. So Sotha Sil, also known as Set, Seht, and then he's part of the Alm Civi. He's the SI part of the Alm Civi, like name squished together thing, which we talked about last time. So just wanted to put that out there before we got to the end of the show.
That's actually a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So there is an item that is mentioned called Set's Effect Inducer, which is a device that can manipulate a person's emotions.
This is just creepy.
This is part of, I think this is one of those like part of like a little quest line in ESO or something.
Yeah, I think so too.
And so, okay. Weird, but all right. Who knows? He probably invented lots of things and they probably got, misplaced and then somebody ended up
just
with it or something.
The idea behind this one is unsettling though, where it's kind of just like that little flashy thing from the Men in Black. Except this one makes you do what he wants.
Yeah. Man, sometimes, it's, days when you're just like, I'm having a rough day. If you just like flash yourself with a little device and be like, everything's fine now. This is great.
Much better now.
Wait, that's called alcohol.
Oh, yeah. And also much worse side effects.
I don't drink enough, I guess. Then the final item is called Sunara. Sunara is a powerful staff-like device created by the clockwork god Sotha Sil. Translated as the Blessed Staff, it combines clockwork technology with magicka. This whole mechanized and magic thing. Mecha-god-wizard.
Mecha-wizard.
That's what we're talking about. It was used by Sotha Sil to study his divine powers. By draining minute pieces of his own energy into a reservoir, he could study it and then return the energy back into himself, which seems like a really useful device if you're trying to design something like a mechanical heart that can funnel powers back and forth, right?
Seems like it would be useful, yeah.
Seems like one of those tools that also would be useful. This is another ESO item. So, but, that's a good number of little bits and bobs and items here.
Yeah.
Not as many as like the Daedric Princes, but
sure.
Still,
but a decent amount of trinkets.
Some trinkets. It'd be cool to get other stuff in future games and be like, I mean, Sotha Sil especially, like, he was crafting all sorts of crazy crap.
Yes. The only problem, depending upon where the series takes place, I suppose, is he's also Sotha dead. So he's not going to be making any new stuff.
Yeah, but
he's just going to kind of rummage through his stuff and find what else he made.
Right. Like, what happens with the Clockwork City? Does he have like a whole catalog of other things there that all of a sudden get out and are used by other people to do things? I can think of a dozen ways of being like, this is a way we got more Sotha Sil stuff, even though he's not actually doing anything anymore.
Right.
But I think that does it for our overview. There's definitely some
a decent bit of Sotha.
Yeah, there's definitely some other topics we could dive into in future episodes and get a little bit deeper on, especially like the Clockwork City, because it's so freaking cool. It
definitely won't be the last time we have to mention Set in one method or another, as he ties into quite a bit of the series.
Right. Well, Lotus, you got anything else going on before we head out?
No, we did our big year-end wrap-up for Tales, and we didn't have an episode this week to kick off the year.
When you said wrap-up, I thought like rap, like music.
Like the Spotify Wrapped?
No, like music. And then I thought like rap battle.
No.
And then I thought like you and Ark having like
it was a 4-hour-long
yearly rap battle at the end of it.
No, we didn't do that. We didn't.
Well, that's a bummer.
Nobody would want to hear that, and I certainly wouldn't want to edit that.
No, you just get real good, and then you don't have to edit.
But yeah, so we kind of covered like the year in review, which is definitely very spoilery. But a lot of people have had, interesting thoughts, and we kind of dove into what we thought might be coming in the upcoming year. those were kind of our last two episodes of the year. They were incredibly long because it was about 6 hours worth of podcasts in the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
So we kind of covered just everything we could. We didn't record this week because I had mentioned to you, I've got some real life stuff that has had me very preoccupied at the moment, but things have managed to work out where it's like time wise, things are balanced well enough that I can still manage to do this, but we're waiting on a reveal. So I figured, well, why squeeze out a show about nothing there if we maybe by next week we might have a little snippet, a 5-second trailer like they love to do to us, where it's like, oh, here's 3 seconds. What do you think? And then everybody goes wild for 2 weeks until we find out that we're all wrong and it has nothing to do with anything.
I swear that the movement of the ships on that last one from last year was the wrong freaking direction.
You did so even though it was funny, I remember that whole episode. As much as I was like, I don't think you're right, but you make a damn compelling argument.
I was right about them getting the direction wrong, right?
Yes.
I was right about it's
the way
wrong.
The map was laid out on the table.
Exactly.
Objectively does not work.
It doesn't make sense for the perspective of the character.
Yes, I know.
I was like, I figured it out because they're going to assume that we think certain things, and then but look at the way the map is; it's backwards. And no, it's just it was a cinematic reasons for just making it look interesting. Or something.
I know.
It didn't actually make any rational sense. So I'm on to you, ESO.
And your sweet blur trailers that might have logical inconsistencies.
Now I know not to look at the logical inconsistencies and only look at the stuff you purposely added there. I thought I was being clever. I was too smart, and now I'm alone like Sotha Sil.
See, you thought yourself right into a corner.
I guess I did. Oh, well.
But so that's pretty much it. Hopefully, we'll be recording Tales next week, no matter what, regardless of whether we get an announcement or not. But other than that, I've just been playing through in my game time. I'll play some ESO when I get a chance. But my big thing is I've been really diving into the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, which is quite a wild ride. That game is real ahead of its time. But I will say, unlike Arena and Battlespire, which there were a myriad of flaws with them, but I understood like the basis was there and stuff like that. That was, I saw where they were going. Daggerfall is so ahead of its time. It's blowing my mind on a semi-regular basis. Like, wow, this game has so much to it. It's really, really impressive. And actually, it's a shocking amount of fun for being a game that old, too. It's still a little rough, but it's very playable, especially in the Unity version. It's been really fun to do. And then I've just been throwing out the videos. Tons of people hang out with me live and watch me blunder around. And then I've just been throwing up the recorded versions for people to watch. And I've been very surprised how much people have commented that they really enjoy watching somebody blunder through the game, like not having any direction and just trying to figure it out as they go.
Well, it's like a podcast. It's easier to put on while you're doing something else, right?
Exactly. And that's what I've been told. They're like, it's just great. And several people have been like, yeah, it's really great because now I don't have to play the game and I know how it works. It's like, perfect. Glad to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Daggerfall, I saw a video today from 6 months ago from a mod for Skyrim that I didn't realize existed, which is weird because I pay a lot of attention to the modding scene, called Skygerfall. And somebody modded in the ability to play the main quest line of Daggerfall in the Skyrim engine.
Really?
Yeah, and it uses multiple mods from multiple other people. You have to go through a whole thing and download, like, it's not one person did the whole thing. They're like, oh, somebody made these skeleton monsters and somebody made this type of texture and whatever. And basically, somebody made the level up system from Daggerfall to replace the one from Skyrim. And basically, you put all that stuff together and then you get to play through the main quest. And it's shrunk down to like 2/3 the size of Skyrim's map, which is crazy because the map is so big. And then if you're in like one of the cities, it's also, the land is very flat. So if you're in one of the main cities, you can just look across the map to like the next big city that you need to go to, and which you can't do playing Daggerfall because it's so huge.
Right. So that's interesting just from being, kind of immersed in the game currently. To hear that, because first of all, it just seems like at this point, everything's eventually just going to get ported to the Skyrim engine.
Right, eventually.
But that aside, I would imagine that it's so much of it, like you said, being condensed down. some of the biggest holdups of the game are its just crazy immenseness, where it's like dungeons, like the first quest dungeon I did, it was like, oh yeah, go to this castle, for lack of a better word. I'm not going to go into the story or whatever.
Sure.
But like, it took me like 3 hours to get through the damn thing. And I was like, oh,
welcome to old school RPGs, everybody.
And the map is just like, I appreciate what they were trying to do. It's a 3D map and it fills as you walk through it. Mm-hmm. But the problem is trying to look at a 3D map is not a pleasant experience.
No, it's,
and it really, it is. Trying to read that map takes me about as long as it does to get through the thing sometimes.
Yeah. Also, the scale of hallways and rooms in the game are totally whacked.
Oh, yeah.
they're way
absolutely.
off. Yeah. So that's something modern games do a lot better. Is like rooms are actually room sized and the hallways are actually hallway sized. And they tend to link, at least in semi-rational ways, to other rooms and things and don't leave a whole lot of empty space in a building. Yeah.
Right. When it's just procedurally generated, it's like, oh, a hallway leading to a hallway leading to a hallway leading to a hallway leading to a room that's a dead end. It's like, and
each of the hallways is like 50 yards long. It's like, why is it so long? Yeah. But anyway, I saw that was a thing. So I don't know if you want to go check that out, but I'm sure you can.
Absolutely, I do actually.
It might take you 3 hours to install everything, but there you go. Yeah, Jillian says 40-hour quest setting it up. That sounds about right. Well, I've got all my normal stuff going on. I've got a bunch of podcasts and stuff. I haven't been streaming as much, but like the urge is there, and I'm like, I should stream more. I should play games and hang out with people. So look for some live streams. Maybe I'll pop on occasion and do some more just gaming and stuff. Otherwise, you can always come for the live shows. Also, robotsradio.net for all the different shows and everything else I've got going on. And who knows, maybe we're going to get more info on Starfield. The rumor mill is churning about potential Starfield launch date coming out very soon, and that it might happen before Redfall, which is in May now. So, because why would, like, the thought was they've said that they're going to put it out in the first half of the year, half of the year. So that would be up through June. But if they're putting Redfall out in the middle of May, that's really close to anything that launches in June. So why would they want to eat their own hype, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Are we looking at really end of first quarter?
Go to the following November.
Yeah, but they said it's going to be the first half of the year.
I mean, granted, they're not giving a release date, but they're doubling down on it's the first half.
Yeah,
and they said that they're not going to delay again, and I'm like,
right. And other messages from Microsoft and other people on Twitter and all sorts of other places are still conveying that message. So
yeah, I'm very curious to see how that all plays out.
March, April. Like end of March, early April.
Whenever they want to release it, just let it be done. Like,
hopefully it's done.
Completed. Yeah. Like, don't make me have a 90 gig day one patch. Like,
oh, well, that's going to happen.
But I don't.
That always happens because they have to get it approved for like things like Xbox and stuff, which means it has to go to cert before and then they've got like weeks before the next, so they've got time to patch more things in the next few weeks. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we will see, because it's just like, I stand by the fact that as much as I really enjoy Fallout 76, that game would have had such a different narrative around it had it just launched when Wastelanders came out, which was one of its first major expansion.
If they pushed it a year and a half, it would have been so much better.
Had that been the game when it launched, that game would have probably just had an entirely different story all around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fingers crossed, but that's what we got going on. We'll be back next week talking about Vivek. So we'll finish up the Tribunal. So come hang out with us for that, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Stay safe out there. See you guys later.
Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter at robots_radio or Lotus of Doom at Lotus of Doom. Also, you can join us on the Robots Radio Discord channel. You can easily just search Robots Radio Discord on Google or check the description underneath the podcast. Also, this podcast is recorded live every week on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Robots Radio channels on Twitch, YouTube, and on Facebook. So just search Robots Radio on any of those platforms platforms. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you while we record the show, or before or after. Either way, just come hang out with us. And if you're looking for more information about my shows and the shows on the Robots Radio Network, go to robotsradio.net for all the information about all the shows on the network, including the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where I help both new and existing podcasters to grow their shows, build their audiences, and create the best podcast they possibly can. All of that at robotsradio.net. We'll see you next time.